Okay, so this month is all about the art of flourishing. Is that right? Yes, is that right? Is that where we are still? Okay, all right, good. Yeah, we're flourishing, right? So growing luxuriantly, growing abundantly. And the first week I talked about being selfish, right? Being selfish, really focusing on the self and how turning our attention towards ourself, the little s self and the higher s self, the higher self, is a beautiful, rich, and rewarding thing to do. It is not so called selfish at all, right? It is what we need in order to flourish, to water our own souls. And then my mom spoke last week and she told y'all to be quiet. But she didn't say it like that. But I just love saying that my mom told y'all to be quiet, right? Right, which was all about, once again, like being in this ground of being and not so much doing, which allows us to then flourish. If you think about a plant growing, it's springtime, almost summer, and we look outside and we see the plants growing, and they don't need you to do a lot of stuff to them. They just need a little water and some sunlight, right, for the most part, and they're good. Yes, and they grow and they flourish. And so for us, same thing. We don't have to do so much doing. We can be more being, right? So being quiet. And today the talk is about be playful. Be playful. And as always, this talk is for me. I had a mentor ask me, Reverend Dr. Edward Villion, who's the senior minister at CSL Santa Rosa, and he asked me last year, what are you doing, Rasheryl, for fun? What do you do what's a hobby? What are you doing that has nothing to do with the church, nothing to do with work, that's fun? Like, when do you play? That's still my response, right? That is still my response. It's like, I don't know. What? I don't do anything that's unrelated to working in the church. Part of it is because I'm so blessed that the work I do, I love so much. I love doing it, right? So it doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like play. But here's the thing: true play is a very specific thing, and it is actually a spiritual practice that will be partaking more in. And I want to encourage us as a community to do that. So play is defined by Dr. Stuart Brown, who was a big researcher on play. He's a medical doctor and a psychologist, did tons of research on play, established, I think it's called the Institute of Play, wrote a book called Play, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul, right? And so what Dr. Brown says, he defines play as an apparently purposeless activity that is both enjoyable and pleasurable. It is a state of mind where one becomes completely absorbed and loses track of time. And Dr. Brown thought that play could be the key to discovering our true potential. And that play is not a trivial thing. It is a biological drive that is integral to our health. It is as integral to our health as sleep, as proper food, as hydration. And so I ask again, and now I'm asking you, when was the last time you played? Oh, some folks have play wired into their work. Is there anyone in the room like me who does? Okay, thank you. I don't feel so alone now. I feel like I'm seen and heard, right? Some folks in the room who have a hard time, right, just doing something for no purpose. And it's easy to see why our culture rewards us for being purposeful and productive and getting things done and hustling and driving, right? This whole culture is about achieve, 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 get stuff done, right? And now with ChatGPT, you can get lots of stuff done. You can get really caught up in a lot of things, right? As some of you may know. Right, exactly. And so here's the thing. Just doing something enjoyable for no purpose, for no reason, for no thing other than it's pleasurable or it's fun or it's a relief, right? When you look at children, and those of you who are blessed to work with children, when you look at children and they play, is that the most delightful thing to watch a child play, right? Where they're not thinking about anything, their imaginations are wide open, they are just in joy and delight. There's a lightness, there's energy, and it's so beautiful to watch children play. So if you don't have children in your life, As I was preparing for this talk, I was watching children on just different YouTube things, and then my apartment sits right over the pool, and so I've been watching kids play in the pool for the last week or so, just really paying attention to that, right, and the delight that they're having there. And so here's the thing: what if we think about play or frame it as part of our spiritual practice? Right? Because that I can do. Like, if it's framed that way, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that, right? But what if we frame it as our spiritual practice, as part of our spiritual practice? And so let's even just drill down into play. There's this Hindu concept, this concept from Hinduism. There's this beautiful word called Leela, Leela. Yes? And so Leela means divine play. And so in Hinduism, Leela is described as this spontaneous, joyous, creative energy of the universe itself. It is literally God at play, right? The delight that God has in being itself, the delight that God has in expressing itself, the delight that God has showing up as each of us uniquely in our unique ways, right? The unique ways that we show up, creating the earth and all of the things that it holds, and the cosmos and all the things that it holds, right? And if you don't think God has a sense of humor, just take a look around the room, right? Take a look outside, right? Take a look out in nature, right? Take a look anywhere and everywhere, and you see the delight of God, right? You see the joyful faces. You see the energy. You see the uniqueness. You see the quirkiness. And we love it all, right? We love it all. This is God at play. And so we begin to think about a multicolored parakeet that talks and says these funny things. This is God at play, right? And it's so delightful giving myself the assignment to watch a bunch of like YouTube shorts and different things, right? And just seeing even animals, like the funny things that animals do, right? That they're just wired to do that thing. When you look around and you see God has an incredible sense of humor, right? An incredible sense of play, an incredible sense of artistry, an incredible sense of creativity. Yes? And so this is a spiritual way of being. It is literally how the divine is, right? How the divine is playful. So if that is true, then what that means, and we know in religious science and science of mind, we look at things as the microcosm God and the microcosm, how it applies to us, right? So if God is this state of play, this state of being and creativity, then we are. And the more that we find ways to do fun stuff that just has no purpose, we're not trying to be productive, the more we engage in playful activity, engage in play, the more connected we are and aligned with the divine. Right? It allows us to align with the divine within us. We see the face of God emerging through us. We tap into the energy of the divine when we're at play. Because you know what happens when we're playing? We lose all sense of self. Right? That inner critic shuts down. The ego shuts down. All the stuff that's holding us back shuts down. Whatever we're worried about shuts down. The anxiety, the fear, whatever disaster is happening on the news, it fades into the background, right? And we're in this very energized, creative, powerful place and space of release and surrender and being caught up in whatever it is we're doing and having so much joy doing that. And joy is a quality of God. Joy is the quality of God. So in reality, when we let go of the need to drive a result, and we actually open ourselves up to play, we're opening ourselves to the entire field of being, the entire ground of being, the entire immensity of God, right? And so here's what's really interesting as I was thinking through this, and I had to go back through the vaults of my mind to find, like, okay, when was the time that I actually played a lot? Because even as a child, I didn't really play a lot. I had a lemonade stand that I was selling lemonade. I baked cookies that I came out of the womb selling stuff, okay? I like came out like, where's my business plan, right? I was 2 months premature. I got here and I'm like, I'm ready to build a business, yes? So I was that kid that was always doing something. Like I always had something going on. And because I had so much energy, my mom kept me plugged in tight to artistic activities and other things to keep my attention engaged at a high level. And so I was thinking back, like I didn't really play a whole lot. I did play in the summers when I would go visit my dad and my grandparents in Alabama. I would play more there, right? And then I was thinking, oh, in college, when I was a theater major, and so Trudy, you may relate to this, there are all kinds of theater games that you play as part of your training, right? So there's theater games, there's improv games that you play as part of your training. And literally, sometimes you're playing in classes, you're playing childhood games, red light, green light. What's the one? Mother May I, right? You're just playing all kinds of games, tag, right? And part of the reason that is an integral part of theater training is because, as I said before, it really helps you lose yourself and really get connected to that place within that's pure, right? That place within where pure impulse is, right? That place within where you are making instinctual decisions. You're not in the logical mind necessarily, right? So you're in this really imaginative, potent place that is being stoked and stoked and stoked. So as an actor, you have some things to draw on. It's part of the training, right? The other thing that happened in theater class when we would do theater games is you also learn a lot about yourself and a lot about the other people in class with you, right? Because all of a sudden you see like who's sneaky, okay, maybe it's me, right? Who is very competitive, hyper competitive, right? Who drops out when it gets too hot. Who, you got to see all these ways that people respond in games, just like when you're watching children play games, and you can learn a lot about their personalities, right? And so in theater, it was the same thing. Like you got to see, and if you're self-aware, if you're practicing self-awareness, you got to understand more about yourself. What triggers you? What doesn't? What shuts you down? What energizes you? What draws energy away from you, right? So playing itself gave you a lot of information about yourself and about how you navigate and move through the world, how you interact with others, how you play nicely with others or not, right? So you got to see all of that by playing in a theater game program. And then the third thing that happened in those games is it built community. It built in theater, it's called ensemble, right? Because if you're doing a play with a group of people, there needs to be some connection between you, right? So there needs to be what's called ensemble, where you're working together, even though you're different characters and you have different objectives in the play, you have different roles that you're playing. But as the group that's putting on the play, as the group of actors, you have to have a sense of ensemble, a team, right? A team, and that is how you get to see and build that trust, build that knowing of each other, build that ability to support each other, build that ability to inspire each other or push each other or to protect each other. Yes? And so the theater games give us all of that. It's like a living instruction manual for building community, for building relationship, for building awareness of the self. Yes? And so I invite you in to really look at, for yourself, how can this be useful in your life right now? Right? How can this be useful in your life right now? So for those of you who are already playing, tell me, what are you doing? Basketball. Juggling, which I want to juggle. I want to juggle balls, not all the things I'm juggling. What else are you doing for fun, for play? Bike riding, arts and crafts, hiking, painting, singing, dance parties. Yes, yes. So these are all of the things that you're doing now. And if you're not doing these things, I invite you to find for yourself how can you play, right? How can you be in a state of playfulness? How can you find something? I used to love as a kid to play jacks. I'm just remembering that. Anybody play jacks? And yeah, I used to love playing jacks. I loved it and get so into. Who wants to play jacks? Okay, all right. So we're playing jacks in the next 30 days. Okay, we're going to find a time and a place. We can't play it here because of the carpet. We'll find a place, right? But I encourage you this week to really look at, where can you play? What can you do that unlocks playfulness for yourself, and get off the hamster wheel. What is that called? Is that what it's called? Okay, Get off the hamster wheel. I wanted to say the grind. That's what I wanted to say. Get off the grind, right? And get into play and find places where you can play. Um, one of the other things that happens, and this is what I love about neuroscience, neuroscience has come along and it is now proving what the ancients already knew, right? The ancients already knew how all this stuff works. But the beautiful thing about play is that it actually rewires the brain, right? Neuroscience is showing that play increases neuroplasticity. What does that mean? That means that you're more flexible in your thinking, right? You don't have to get caught in a trap around how you're thinking about things or get into a pattern of thinking, right? So there's more neuroplasticity. It reduces stress, enhances emotional regulation. It sparks creative problem solving, right? It activates the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of the imagination and all of the vision and new possibilities, right? And if we're thinking right now, like part of the reason we're not playing is because there's so much important work to be done. What I'm saying is, by taking the time out to play and be in a state of being and playing, it actually can elevate your performance, right? It can actually elevate your performance in your business, or elevate your performance at your job, or elevate your performance in your relationship, or just in life, right? Because you're spending time in this state of being that is imaginative, that is all possibilities, that is the divine power and creativity is right there. And we all know that you cannot solve a problem at the level of the problem, right? You have to be in a state of altered, heightened possibility. You have to be in a state of abundant possibility. You have to be in the field of being to actually be available for the problems, the solution to come through. We can't solve it at the level that we are right now, right? And I'm so intent on this because I'm talking to myself. Like, there's no way that you can grind it out and solve a problem. You can, right? But to really get to a sustainable solution in a sustainable way, right, you have to move into the ground of being and have to stop so much of the doing. Yes? So what am I going to do? Come to my school. Well, okay, I absolutely will. Okay, I will do that. I would love to do that. Yes. Yeah, that would be delightful. So interesting. That actually, so for those of you online, Joni invited me to her school, and is it Khan Lab School in, right, KHAN, Khan Lab School, Saul Khan, forever changed education. And so Joni is a principal at Khan Lab School. So she invited me to come and read to her kids, which I will. And I will also say that was another part of theater training. We had to read to children because it activates the sense of play. It's also an assignment I would give to my corporate clients who needed help with being more expressive. And I would say to them, when you read a book to a child, you don't go, John went to the store, and then he turned the corner, and then there was a frog that jumped out, and it scared him. You don't do that, right? So I would tell my corporate clients who, might have been struggling with being expressive, if you go and practice reading to children, either your children, if you have small children, go to the library, find somewhere you can read to kids, because when you read to children, this is what you're going to do. You're going to say, John came out of the door and he turned the corner and there was a frog, bah! Right? That scared him, right? You're going to be highly expressive. And then that expressiveness, that's not what you're going to bring into the business world, but it unlocks spaciousness for you to be more expressive, right? So this is a powerful thing, reading to children. And so if you have children in your life, read to them, right? Or grandchildren, little children, neighbors, take time to read to them and interact with them and play with them, because that is a form of play and it awakens that childhood delight in you as well, right? So the last thing I want to say is this. Jesus said, unless you become like little children, right? You have to become like little children, right? And it's really about not being little. It's about the innocence and the purity of heart, the sweetness, the power and the delight. I was watching this really hilarious video short yesterday of a nativity scene, a school's nativity scene, and I would say that the children must have been maybe 4 or 5, and so you had a manger with baby Jesus in it. It was a doll, obviously, and then you had the sheep that had on their sheep costumes, and then you had Mary that had on her blue long dress. And so at some point, the kids are standing around the manger, and one of the sheep goes over and picks baby Jesus up out of the manger and starts, swinging him. Then turns around to the audience and is like, dancing with baby Jesus, and you can hear all the adults in the audience laughing. It's hilarious. So then the other sheep don't know what to do. They're like shuffling and they're looking. And then Mary has on this long blue dress, and she sort of hikes her dress up and walks over and gets the baby and puts it back in the manger, right? And so the sheep who had taken Jesus out is sort of standing there and standing there and standing there, and then turns around and goes back and tussles and grabs baby Jesus again, right? And gets him out and dancing to the audience and everything. And then Mother Mary comes around and puts the sheep in a headlock, and they tussle. They tussle until finally you see a teacher running up on the stage, and the video ends. That was so hilarious, right? And I was like, unless you become like little children, right? It was so delightful watching that, and the audience was just cracking up, and the kids, the more the audience laughed, and the kids didn't know how to respond, but they were getting a laugh. So, it was really, really wonderful. So if I can find that link again, I'll have Nicole put it in the email that goes out this week, so you can see that. It's really hilarious. But the wonderful thing is, Ernest Holmes says, the one who can become as a little child will enter into the joy of life, capital L life, will enter into the joy of life. And so in order for us to flourish, then we have to return to that state and find ways and places to plug in, whether it is reading to children at a school, whether it is tending to or playing, taking the time to play with children in your life, right? Or watching children on YouTube or other things, finding other ways to play. But just to remember that innocence and that joy and that lightness and that creativity and that spontaneity and the impulse is such a beautiful thing. It's so energizing, right? It's so energizing. It's so nourishing and empowering. And that is what our world needs today. That is what we need today with this onslaught of news and disaster and drama and trauma that is just continually happening, to find an oasis of just sweetness and purity and creativity in life is a beautiful thing. And so I invite us into that this week. Okay? So we'll find a way to play, and then we will laugh with Morgan on next Sunday when we do laughter yoga, which I love, and we'll do that. But find some playtime this week. And if you would like to, this is not quite play, but I have an invitation for you that I'm going to do after the prayer. So let's turn within.